Hello, my name is Matthew Johnson, the co-founder of the Neighboring Movement. We're here with a special video during the coronavirus outbreak. I am joined, as usual, by my colleague and co-founder, Adam Barlow-Thompson.
Hello, good neighbors. Welcome to the wonderful world of Zoom videos. I'm sure you've only seen about 1,000 of these, but we figured you'd want to hear from us as well. So we decided to put some stuff out there. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about how does neighboring happen in the midst of this very strange world that we're living through. And we had some requests for some neighboring tips, like some practical things that we could do for this time. But before we can get to tips, there's a couple kind of like just things that I think we have to address before we can actually neighbor well right now. And so one of them is the insane amount of grief that we are all experiencing. And some people may be more aware of or wrestling with in a healthy way, but some people may be ignoring altogether. And there's some consequences when maybe you aren't paying attention to the grief that's happening. So, I mean, I don't know, Matt, what kind of ways have you seen that showing up in neighboring or just in any other places in your life?
Yeah, a couple of things that I've noticed. One, just for myself, I have certainly found that I've had a shorter temper. Particularly when the first waves of announcements started coming out, and they didn't seem to be related. Like I was doing other things and then I would just like get furious about something. I'm like, why am I furious about this? And
Yeah.
if eventually, there's the work on stages of grief, and and they're not really stages, they're more like tools or framework, and one of them is being angry. And when I saw that, it was an aha moment. I thought, oh, yeah, okay, I'm actually grieving because all of these things that I was planning to do are gone.
Hmm.
All of these relationships are being changed. And it's just there's a bunch of work that's being, that I've got to do to make things work or happen. So that was the first that was the first indication that I saw that there was something going on. And then the second one was, I was having a conversation with a neighbor, and they were just real cranky
Yeah.
and kind of venting, not about coronavirus, not really about anything, just kind of venting. And again, in the moment, I was like, okay, this person's just having a bad day. And you go, that's what we used to say, right? Like before coronavirus, people just had bad days. And now it's like, oh no, like, like this person's probably anxious about their job. Uh,
Right.
Again, their life is being changed in unexpected ways, or they don't know what's coming. Like, and so I think that's an aspect in terms of neighboring. And of course, there's more that we'll get into as far as keeping 6 feet apart and all that. But even when I'm chatting with neighbors, that there's this time when it's like there's some grief that needs to get let out, and that may come
Yeah.
in the form of tears, or just being just emotionally more sensitive than they normally are, or being angry, or being in denial, like why is everybody so worked up about this, like all of that can be
Yeah.
part of grief. So
Yeah.
that's what
Also,
I've seen.
was I that cranky neighbor that you had? Because I've definitely been crankier than normal.
I mean,
I
I'm not going to call any names out.
my experience of it has been like it varies widely from day to day for reasons that I can't understand. And
Yeah.
like this morning, I couldn't get out of bed this morning. Like I just did not want to get out of bed. And it just took everything I could. Actually, it took my family being like, okay, you have to, like, we have things we need to do now. You
Right.
have to get out of bed. Right. So
Yeah.
I think giving yourself a lot of grace with that and giving your neighbors a lot of grace with that is the point we want to make there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, which is kind of a counterpoint to the next thing we want to point out then. So you want to offer a lot of grace, but you also sometimes have to have different boundaries than you did in the world before coronavirus.
Yes.
And that's kind of awkward
It's
because
very awkward.
Yeah, like all of our neighbors are holding the same kind of social distancing standards that maybe we are.
Yeah.
So what do you do with a neighbor who consistently walks up on your porch, or a neighbor who you've helped in a particular way all the time and happily, but
Mm-hmm.
now you can't help in that way anymore? What happens when they ask for that help again?
Yeah.
Those are things we've been wrestling with and have
Mm-hmm.
honestly just not found a great answer to.
No.
It's very case by case situation for me. So one of my neighbors who lives at home by herself, is older, and has been on hospice care actually. So like she has a lot of needs. Um, and I've been happily helping her. I'll go over to her house and do stuff for a long time now. I've been doing that. And she's called me at least twice in the last week. One time I said, no, that's not a thing I'm going to come over for, because I just, like I've been out and I don't want to come into your home. You are an immunocompromised person, which are
Mm-hmm.
words I never really used before this, but
Right,
here we
right.
are.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go put my germs in your house for that smaller task that she needed done.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked through it on the phone and it was fine. But then she
Mm-hmm.
called me again and she had fallen and she needed up. She couldn't get up.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to just like, I was like, well, it's like, it was 1 a.m. I couldn't just leave her there. So
Yeah.
I said, okay, well, I'm going to come. Don't worry about it. And I brought I had my hand wipe, my sanitizing wipe thing with me. I like
Yes.
wiped all the things that I touched and wiped going in and wiped coming out.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just awkward because it's
It's
like, I'm not scared of her germs. I don't want
right.
her to feel like a leper or something,
Yeah.
that's not
Yeah.
what it is. It's like, I really care for her and don't want to compromise her health,
Mm-hmm.
or my
Mm-hmm.
family's health. And it just, I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah. I think it's also hard because not everybody, not everybody's in agreement.
Right.
So I was thinking about wherever you're at watching this video, like your governor may have issued a very different standard than what we have in Kansas right now.
Mm-hmm.
And then even for us, like we're in my household, we're sticking to an even higher standard than what's been requested in our state. Because we wanted to be proactive. We felt like there was some ambiguity from our own government. And so it's like, well, if we just go ahead, let's just try to limit, then maybe we can help reduce. Like we're trying to be good citizens, honestly.
Yeah.
And like, well, I could do a little even more and maybe help reduce the spread. So I think that's a big part of this challenge. If you're in a place where, if you're in New York City, right, I'm not sure what counsel I could give because it's so prevalent there.
Right.
Um, but yeah, so Adam, I think like in what you're sharing, what I hear too is like we kind of have to figure it out as we go. I think communicating is really big. And realizing one of the lessons that I've seen is it's really important to let people know that it's not that you fear them,
Right.
right? Because I think there's just this automatic shame that people feel if you're like, well, I'm practicing social distancing. It's like, oh, what do you think? Do you think I have it? And it's like, no. I mean, I'm saying I might have it, right? Like, I
Yeah.
don't, I don't want to give it to my neighbors. You know how horrible I would feel if one of my neighbors
Oh God.
got it
Yeah.
from me.
Terrible.
Like, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Also, like, there's no shame in getting the coronavirus. Like,
no, that's
no,
right.
you're not getting it because you're somehow less of a moral person or something.
Yeah.
Like, it's a very infectious disease.
Mm-hmm,
I mean,
mm-hmm,
yeah. So it is, but it's weird. And it's just, I think, honestly, the thing that's been most helpful in this has just been really naming it and like pushing through the awkwardness and just naming it with
mm-hmm.
your neighbors. And so one of our neighbors who had asked both of us to do something, that's kind of what happened is we pushed through the awkward, or actually Christopher, one of our other
Yes.
neighbors, helped do this, but he pushed through the awkward and named like, we're really trying to do this and we care about you. And this is one way we can do that. And then she actually kind of upped her social distancing practices as a
Mm-hmm.
result of that. And so just naming it, and that's a lot of just how we deal like conflict with people, and setting boundaries is often about naming things that you feel inside that somehow for some reason feels awkward to say out loud. But
Mhm.
really during this time, it's pretty important to do that. Like it can literally save a life.
That's right.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's good. That's good.
okay. So those are the things we wanted to name there,
Yes.
right? So what are some good neighboring tips that we could offer to the world in light of all that?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a couple things that come to my mind. I think the first thing is, and this is just from our experience, is still find ways to be outside. And we're lucky here in Wichita because we've had some real nice weather over these last couple weeks. And so we've just made it a priority to be outside working in the yard and just to be visible. And what that does is it opens up a space so that people can, chat to us over the fence
Mm-hmm.
or chat when they walk by. So, and we're just, trying to keep up those connections. And I think along with that, and this is just my own, is to make sure that whatever project I'm working on is not the top priority. So
Right.
like I love getting work done in my yard. It's been pretty energizing and refreshing in a time when a lot of things are draining. Um, but I still can't prioritize that. If a neighbor comes up and just wants to chat, then I'm going to stop what I'm doing. It's fine. It'll get done later. And then,
Right.
we chat. So that's one that's been really helpful to keep in mind. I don't have to stay indoors, just because of coronavirus. So,
Right. Right.
yeah. How about for you?
I mean, I think if you already have contact information for neighbors, this is a moment where that's really helpful.
Mm-hmm.
And so, figuring out a way to connect with a neighbor through phone, through text, through Facebook, through some digital way has been really a great thing that I've been able to do. Before it got really crazy, I walked around and delivered a little note to each of my neighbors with our contact information and said, hey, some of you I know well, and I just want to say, hey, we're thinking about you during this time. Some of you I don't know as well, and send me your contact information. Just send me in a text and I've been able to contact neighbors who I didn't really know well because of this through that little note. And you need to be careful about notes right now. I mean, there's some people who are even like to the point where like, no, I don't want things delivered to my house. So if you do that, just be really careful about the way you do it. If don't go knock on a door and wait for them to come and hand it directly to them, that kind of stuff. That's not what we're doing here.
Yeah.
So, cough on it before you give it to them.
Yeah. That's a list of things not to do.
No, don't do any of that.
Right.
Wash your hands really well and then get the notes straight from your printer to, their mailbox or something like that.
Yes. Yeah.
But then once I've had that contact information, there's been a couple neighbors who, again, one of them who lives alone and has kind of named like that he feels kind of isolated, that I've intentionally said, okay, I'm going to make sure I call that person once a week. Like, and it's a little awkward, to be honest, still, because we don't know each other very well.
Yeah.
But I'm like, he named that in the first conversation we had.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to pay attention. He didn't like say, will you call me once a week? But I'm trying to kind of read through the lines of like, this is a place where I can offer support. And so, and again, one of the ways I connected with him yesterday, actually, because we were out riding our bikes. And so he was sitting on his front porch. And so from the street, I could have a conversation with him on his front porch. So,
yeah. And I think that to me just points to the fact that we shouldn't underestimate those connections. It's important, even if it's a casual conversation from the front, from the street to the front door.
right.
That matters right now. Yeah. And I think,
Yeah.
along those lines, I would just mention too, like putting out signs of hope or, there's a lot of cool stuff happening.
There is.
My mom sent me an email yesterday about people in her town are putting teddy bears in windows, and then
Nice.
kids, as they're driving by, kids can count, how many teddy bears do you see, and just making that kind of interaction possible. And so this is a chance to like lean into those kind of civic activities, I think.
Right.
and it matters.
And I mean, if you are watching this, you probably have also been on other social media and seen people do cool things, and like, just have courage and go try them. I mean, I don't know, the one that I saw that I'm like dying to replicate was, there was these people, there was three, they were brass players. So there was a trumpet and a tuba and a trombone. And they just went out on their street corner and just, they played just a real common song that people could sing along to.
Oh.
And so they just went out and did that on there. And I was like, oh my God, I'm getting my banjo. I'm gonna call Matt and we're gonna go out and we're just gonna like march down the street playing songs that people can sing to from their house, you know.
Yes.
And the banjo is loud enough that I'll be able to cover the whole block.
I will testify to that. It is. It's loud enough. I'll have to amplify my guitar, but you'll have to amplify the banjo.
Yeah, so just, you know, be creative as you want from 6 feet away.
That's right. So. That's right. Well, good.
Well, I think that kind of wraps up what we wanted to share, but extra resources are available. Check out neighboringmovement.org. That's where a lot of our stuff is. We also provide links there to other resources out on the internet that might be helpful to you. And we really appreciate you tuning in and watching this video, and hope to maybe hear about your neighboring stories. So if you do something cool, send us your story. We'd love to hear it.
Yeah, that would be great. So, all right. Well, until next time, happy neighboring.
Happy neighboring.